How's it going, Ion?
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Cannot complain. Trying this new sound thing one more time.
I know. Hey, 3.0 is the way to go. Or 2.2.1 going to live.
Uh-huh. I wonder about the Star Citizen VoIP. I wonder if that's going to be a thing.
It will, in time.
Ah. Looking forward to it.
All right, and we're live, guys.
Welcome to Station 42. I'm your infamous host, Vadran Malik, and with me today is our co-host,
Traz, I am coast to coast. Can't even say my name right.
Hey, and I'm Godric, Station 42's technical lead.
and I just want to let you guys know that tonight's show is brought to you in part by Big Ben's Pizza Delivery. When Big Ben makes pizza, he likes it to be cooked the right way, which is why he used specially crafted uranium ovens that lightly radiate each pie to perfection. And with over 35,000 toppings, you're going to be sure to find one that you're craving when you crave it. Our high-speed warp delivery system drones are able to deliver it to your door hatch in 30 minutes or less, or your credits are coming right back to your pocket. So when you think of space pizza delivery, you need to think of Big Ben's, available in a system near you. Additionally, our broadcast is...
Sorry.
What you got? Well, no.
I wonder if they have Xi'an space plant toppings.
Well, we can probably put that in there. They're a really diverse customer. I understand that they send us a lot of money, so I'm pretty sure that's there. Right.
Jean artichoke heart pizza, please, with a white sauce topping. I'll go for that.
Go.
Honey, get that Jean topping.
Additionally, our broadcast is supported in part by the Star Citizen Facebook community. That's a.k.a. the Ready Player One group, Star Citizen subreddit, Twitch, Twitter, and of course the amazing people at CIG who keep our community thriving. So if you're a backer, or if you're about to be, or you know a certain horse that you think that you can afford an account for, then we're the show for you. So sit back and enjoy the hot sauce pasta. Who writes this shit? Of Station 42.
Bro, can you not pronounce space pasta?
See, hot sauce.
I love you so much. All right, guys. Sorry so much. Godric and I are just space trolling on our favorite hosts. So, but right, yes. Our show tonight is brought to you with creative support by Mr. Irv Nation, Space Magazine's sexiest man alive or dead, according to this year's Bounty Report.
All things considering about Space Magazine is, since it's in space, they don't usually get to see a lot of people. Today's show is, I'd like to also introduce our special guest, Mr. Joey Wright, fellow Star Citizen, killing it all the way from Texas area. Joey, how are you tonight?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, man. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
I'm happy to be here.
Try to say something. Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, man. No, hey, I've known Joey a long time, so it's good to have him on the show. We're comfortable chatting it up, so it should make it super easy. Glad to have you here, man.
Yeah, this is just like all our other conversations, only this time I have on pants.
Amen.
What? Well, if it isn't the dirty, infamous space rascal, Nex 86.
There you go.
You can't prove that, though. You can't match the name to the face just yet.
I know, right?
Wait. Sexy Nex?
What?
Next,
I told you it was the difference between hotmail and hotmail, like the way you actually spell the word mail.
Man, that's so Nexus.
Whoa! Oh! We're going for the.
All right. Anyway.
Yes. So anyway, hey. All right. So word on the dodgy data line is that you've acquired an Idris to flagship your bacon acquisition plans come verse launch. Inquiring minds demand you tell us more.
Like where I got the Idris or what?
No, man. Just like what? Tell us about. What are you doing with that sexy beast? That's a huge investment.
Well, we plan on taking it and flying it at the sun, but not into the sun because that's dumb. But Come launch time, we're going to try to put together a fleet, like a self-sustaining fleet, and pick a direction in the galaxy and just go. See how long we can last. And we've got a good number of people on board with it so far, so it could be pretty fun.
Yeah, no, it sounds right up my alley anyway. How about you, Adrian?
I'm just I'm wondering about the poor Crucible guys that are going to follow you behind you and pick up all the mess.
Oh yeah. So far we got like an Idris, a few scouts, a hangar full of sabers, a Crucible, and a Starfare. And we're hoping that the Starfare, knowing absolutely nothing about it, is enough to support all those ships.
So, if two Aegis ships fight each other and they happen to be sabers, is it a saber dance?
Only if the tips touch.
Ouch.
You killed my father, prepare to die.
I am Inigo Montoya. You have killed my father. Prepare to die.
Don't do it, Annie. I have the high ground. Oh, wait. Sorry. Okay. Moving on.
Who took the legs right out from under that joke?
Yeah, I know. No kidding. And a few other things. Anyway, I'm having really bad thoughts. Continue on. Yeah, quietly laughing with your mood, huh? Okay. So, all right, about the Idris and Javelin coming up in the monthly report, are we seeing the final stages of development? Can somebody give me some feedback on that one?
Well, the monthly report, it mentioned the Idris and the Jav both a couple of different times, actually, from different departments. It seems like they're talking about it being in its final stages of development, and it's actually seeing some early flight testing.
Okay, so they're actually flying the Javelin.
The background. Yes.
They're flying the Idris. Did they say they're flying the Javelin?
No, Idris. No, I'm sorry. Did I say Javelin? I'm totally backwards tonight. It's backwards, Dave. Gentlemen, didn't you know?
Everything's backwards in space. Or when you're inverted.
Yeah, send me the t-shirt. I want one.
Oh, that's horrible. All right. Well, all right. So what about the pop-up event? Trash? You're the only one that was close.
Oh, yeah. Budio and I, we rolled down there. It was kind of a long drive, some horrible traffic. Got there about an hour late, but that's okay because they started about an hour late. So
Wow.
The devs were super friendly. It was really nice. They couldn't tell us anything hard, but apparently we were talking about. You remember when I hiked up the when Budio and I did the Austin tour of the actual facility. We were part of the 10 folks that got to sneak peek the planetary procedural generation, right? And so we hyped that without dropping what it really was, and it was a big deal, right, to the community. Well, apparently they've got something up their sleeve that's supposed to make that look like child's play. So there was no actual data drop, so I got nothing to leak, unfortunately. But that is pretty exciting. And then that was in the face of them in the next sentence saying, "Oh yeah, but we're going back to the office to watch the video of the Idris flying and launching ships at Port SR." So one thing sounds great, other thing's going to be better. Who knows what it is though?
All right.
Yeah, I was actually closer than Traz to the Austin pop-up event. It was like a concierge event, right? So if you have concierge, you're invited.
Well, if you bought one of those VIP concierge pop-up card things for $10.
Ah, see.
Yep. Well, that way it has a little bit of value to it.
You didn't get it?
No,
I didn't. It was so sexy.
I think you told me about it too, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll buy another Star Citizen thing." And I totally
in Planet
forgot.
Russia, Aegis bitch slap you. Got it. Okay. Why didn't you get the card? Anyway, I'm not gonna ask. Let me see here. It just looks like it's gonna be held back for release.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I know.
I think I might have said that fast.
A little bit. Originally, I remember asking the devs whether or not we would, the owners of Idris would actually see it in hangar prior to it going to Squadron 42. I mean, I know that Squadron 42 is a big part of the game, and we don't want to have the story elements spoiled. But I mean, damn it, I want my ship. I want it in hangar. I don't know. What about you, Joey? What do you think?
Wait, this is news to me. What? What?
Well, because apparently originally we were supposed to see it first because CID policy has always been we're not going to hold ships back, for any event or anything. When they're ready, and we'll release them, especially to the owners, because you spent enough money, you'll get to see it, prior. But I guess Squadron 42 is the special case because it seems like they are now moving to the other side of that, where, like in this case, they're going to hold it back because they don't want to spoil anything. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, the thought there is that apparently to put the Idris inside of the hangar, I mean, what would that actually facilitate? That'd mean a remap of the entire hangar, and they're already trying to do that for the Starfarer. So,
See, I don't understand that. I don't know why they don't just put you like a little shard instance in your elevator. Go get in your elevator and go down to your big ship or whatever.
Right.
Were the Idris and the Starfarer? I didn't realize that they were going to be in the hangar per se anyway, because they can't land.
Well, the Starfarer can, and actually the Idris, whether it can land or not is still up in the air. Originally, it was supposed to be the largest ship that could land when it was a Corvette. When it moved up to frigate. Then it was a long-standing debate, and I don't know that we ever got any hard answers. But the ship is still built with like skids and crap so that it can land theoretically. But I don't see why they would try to put it into hangars anyway. You would think that you just like Joey was saying, you take an elevator, or you log into Port Olisar, and it's on one of those. And we've all seen that that background that shows the Idris and the yeah.
Yeah, I agree. They could easily make something like that. Well, I mean, I'm saying that I'm not a programmer, but it would seem like a pretty easy thing to make. I mean, it wouldn't even have to be on a landing pad. It could just be docked somewhere, or instance just go there from the elevator.
What about the jet? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Why not just make like a docking sleeve that goes outside and your Idris is hooked to it, or have a landing pad you could walk to outside and then EVA out to all the big ships that are just out there floating. I mean, it doesn't have to like sit in the box with everything else. You know what I mean?
Well, what you do is you go and you say, since everybody's got a big ship, it's going to be assumed that they have an industrial hangar. So what you do is you create a special, like another hangar slot at the bottom, and you can only put one large ship in it at a time. So that way you could cycle out the ship that you want to see, and it doesn't take too much assets to do it. You're not going to sit there and try to like spawn all of the ships all at once and blow up your client. But and that would be a good idea, I think, just to have one slot that could take the larger ones. What about the Javelin? More gritty.
Yeah. The you can hear Video in the back saying "my bae," because we have this ongoing argument about who the Javelin. Who the Javelin actually belongs to. But anyways, they were talking about some of the good and bad of it. It depends. As they're talking about, using a lot of, they're both Aegis ships, so using a lot of the assets, reusing a lot of the assets from the Idris on the Javelin.
Well, what comes to mind to me, though, is when they say gritty, are they meaning like chop and slop, or are they meaning like it's going to be more grimy, going to be more dingy, going to be more dirty, and that the Idris is going to be more refined? Yes.
Basically, the latter choice, I believe, is what they meant, which, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I don't know. I mean, if it looks good, I mean, then again, I love the asteroid hangar because it's a little, more...
Yeah.
And see, when I think about them, when I think about the Idris, I think of like a round corner. You know what I mean? Because it's sort of it's not the fighter of the group; it's the more defensive one. You know what I mean? And when I think of the Javelin, I think of like the Star Destroyer. It's all pointy and it's all angular and it looks angry.
I see the large ships like that for area control. And in the case of the Javelin, it would be more of an anti-ship to anti-ship weapon. But when I think of the Idris, I think of more of a scout group, or maybe an incident response, a quick response, basically, that needed more than just a few sabers and some hornets.
Yeah, because it's mostly like the one without the railgun is more anti-fighter than anything else. It's not really all that great against ship to ship.
Yeah, it has it replaces its capital-to-capital torpedoes with anti-fighter missile mounts. And it loses the big rail gun. And but right, I mean, I see the Idris as a force projection. It's gonna carry the fight where you need it. It's gonna be a repair bay, a refuel bay, a launch bay, on top of having it's basically a mobile fob.
Yeah, and basically a small fort in the middle of the the sea of space, I guess. What about
port in the storm?
Yeah,
Big
no kidding. Anyway, not your port. Still no hard data on crew needs. So like, are we going to have to actually buy food, or is that going to be just a number that's going to be assigned and eat up some of your your cargo points? Is that going to be, what about oxygen? Is a Super Hornet allowed to carry an extra tank of oxygen?
Well, oxygen should be relatively easy to make. I mean, that's I think everybody who read the book or watched The Martian is aware. You can make oxygen just out of water, and you can find water in many places in space. So I don't think that should even or would even be a thing.
That's right. That's straight from the scientists, y'all. Y'all can't argue with that.
The scientists with lots and lots of guns.
Can't argue my data. No, and that's interesting. I think that actually could be an entire topic unto itself. Like managing morale by providing more sleeping quarters, and I mean, not to say that we're going to get into space sims, but I mean the Sims in space, but in the sense that I mean, just like the exploration mini game actually included morale as a part of it. So if you've got a full crew crammed into a freelancer, you might run into something where your NPCs might potentially mutiny if you don't care tend their basic needs, because you're out in space and you're out of food or something. Whereas a more spacious ride will help manage morale. But actually, but when it comes to crew needs, especially in this case, like Joey, you just picked up that bad puppy. What are you expecting for the total like human crew requirements versus NPC, if any? Like, what do you think that ratio is going to be? What total crew do you think you'd want to have if you combine them both together, so on and so forth?
Man, I don't know. I think it's more like an efficiency number. Like, I'd say just because it takes 8 people to get it off the ground, it doesn't mean it's going to make it any more efficient than an Aurora. You know what I mean? If you got one person trying to put out every fire on that deck, then, it's just going to burn up in space. So I think because they showed like the bunks and stuff like that, since they showed the bunks, it's like double bunks, 13 racks, so that's like 26 crew, and then you think like the captain's quarters are separate, so that's like 27.
Right. Well, officers.
Then, the
officers have.
Yeah. So
and you got hot swapping, hot bunking.
I wonder if that's going to be a thing, though.
Why not? Like, I mean, my theory is that I would have, NPCs in every single turret 100% of the time. And then when you get into actual scrap, all of your players that are, hanging out in the ship or whatever would roll out to and relieve the NPC gunner and take over a gunner position.
But that rolls into like crew needs too. If you have to provide food for them, then you got to double up on it.
That hot bunking idea, that's going to be a no-go though right off the bat, because I know the reason why you're not allowed to have women on a submarine. You can't just open.
That's actually changed. I mean, there's definitely, the military culture is a lot slower to change than civilian culture, but the idea of keeping women out of certain things is anyway.
It's not the fact that the woman is out of certain things. It's that they're out to port. They're out away for 6 months at a time, and they can't turn around on a dime just to say, because a person all of a sudden decided that they wanted to have an accident of a certain nature.
Well, that's what birth control is for. I'm pretty sure 900 years in the future that you're going to be able to install a chip that moderates your hormonal You know,
I
No,
hope-
no. It's gonna be a
lot of
switch.
a lot of
now.
functions.
It's gonna be a switch on your Moby glass to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
In Pregnal. It's gonna be a tab.
Loading.
Oh dear
Wow.
God, that's horrible.
And here's an ad lib from a listener in the room. Budio is telling me that she was listening to a podcast where, I guess a Canadian podcast, where some of the scientists were talking about like a patch that, you know, attaches at the back of the neck or on the neck or something that basically keeps your libido in check. So, you know, in space.
They have that. They had that in Vietnam. It was called P-Tweeter.
Oh yeah. It's all- They
That's
put
okay.
salt
They always
in the
joke about.
eggs.
Yeah, they always joke about them feeding us some chemicals in the MREs when we're,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and then you know, it's like
I don't believe it.
as like a private and basic training, you're like worried about it. You're sort of just staring down in your bunk, like, man, I hope you work again when we're out of here.
Yeah, I think if anything, just the stress of basic was enough to keep, you know, most libidos in check, but not always.
Anyway, all right. So
So does that fall under crew needs? I don't know where to classify.
It goes back to the morale question.
Okay.
So anyway,
I wonder what.
well, I have to agree. Go
I
ahead.
really want to know about some of the. Okay, so think about what some of the exotic mods for Skyrim is. I wonder what some of the unique mods for Arena Commander would be.
You know,
Yeah. Okay, we can touch off.
I'm a grown ass man. I'm not going to answer that question in public.
Anyway, moving right
All
along.
right. So anyway, you know, I gotta agree. There's a lot currently left to the imagination when it comes to the demands of capital ships. What do you guys think of the fleet dynamics gameplay? How do you want to see big ships move and shoot together in various situations?
I think it's going to be way harder than anybody has even imagined yet. Like, if you think about it, my org is like, we're a pretty tight group. You know, we're all friends and we all know each other and we all game all these different games together. We're like 23 people, and that's not even enough to fully crew an Idris, much less a fleet. So
Right.
that's like stapling Jello to a wall just to play one game together already. And now you suddenly have these massive ships all together, and we need like double the people just to do what we want. And everybody's going to have a job and a screen that they got to watch. And then you got to watch people to make sure you're not going to get shot in the back of the head. And everybody's got fuel and food and bunk needs and stuff. It's going to be like the most demanding. It's going to be more stressful than being an FC in the biggest Eve Corp ever.
So y'all,
you're really onto something. I think you really nailed it there. That's kind of what I'm thinking too. I mean, it's gonna be quite the challenge because right now what we're seeing is pretty much a bunch of single pilots flying around in space and doing their thing, but to have like um, but to have like fleet tactics and stuff like that, that's going to be a whole new learning curve.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing too, because when you start talking about ship balance, and you have all these people talking about, oh, you know, we're going to be able to take down an Idris with, you know, a couple of bombers, and it cannot be that way. And I don't want to break into that conversation yet, just because there's so much other stuff to talk about. But we'll come back around to that, about how ships fight and what roles fighters versus corvettes versus, you know, freighters and you know, the different ships have against each other. We'll get to that in a bit. What do you guys, for now, what do you guys think about convoy operations? Like formations, are they going to be something that's necessary, useful, or is it just going to be a mad scramble and formations won't do a lick of good against an incoming force?
I think formations are going to be pivotal to the entire thing, because you're going to want to try and concentrate fire onto a single section. I'm thinking that these things are going to have such armor, they're going to be so heavy that a single Idris isn't going to be able to take out a single Idris in a good, decent amount of time without having backups and you know, accessories and such. You're going to have multiple ships to try and focus fire on one, down it quick, and then go to the other one, because I just don't see a one-on-one fight ending well for anybody.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't take into account is like we have like an org, message or whatever. We got all these people like theory crafting constantly, over data we don't have or stuff we've made up or snippets of what we heard and we just ran with. And for the most part, like everybody's like, two retaliators warp in on us, we're dead. Well, no, because I'll just warp out, and then he's got to chase me. I don't have to sit there and fight. It's not like Arena Commander or the PU where we have like a tiny limited universe that we're stuck in. We can turn around and leave. That's always an option because if those two retaliators don't bring E-War with them, then they're not going to down in Idris. With active repair crew and fighters and things like that.
I wouldn't put sucker punches on my turrets any. No, I'd never do that. Just eat that shield up and then bam.
What do you guys think about scouting? Think it's going to be needed?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be crazy. There'll be people just flying around, buzzing. It'll be like a moving hornet's nest.
Budio wants to know if there'll be cookies involved.
Space cookies.
What?
Oh.
Oh boy.
Oh. No, so like, do you think scouts will be like, all right, like, so for like an Arena Commander or even in local space, you're flying within, 2K or 5K or even 10K of, like, say you're flying in front of your fleet. Will you think scouts will be positioned that close? Or do you think if they're that close, that would mean too little response time? So do you think Capitals will have like 100,000 meters of range on their sensor coverage?
Me.
Therefore, scouts would be even farther out.
I got some of this one.
Okay, you first, and then I want to go.
All right. So the radar on one ship. So you have Hornet trackers, right? And let's just assume that the radar from a Hornet tracker can be uplinked to the Idris. Basically, you have a mobile radar blip that's moving around in the atmosphere, in the space, scanning the areas and being shared with the Idris and the main ship. So this way, you have extensions of the radar bubble around the ship, and so therefore the scouts are going to be relatively close, but if they wanted to, they could search another area and would still be able to feed data back into the Idris.
Yeah, and I think 90% of it is going to be how like jumping and data feeding works, because they said data is going to be like something that has to be transferred. So scouting doesn't just mean like your scouts are going to be, one jump ahead of you. They could have jumped days beforehand and plotted the jump points and relayed all that information back. And then it's just a matter of like clearing those holes again so that you can jump, so the fleet is safe to jump. It's not something that has to be done all in one sitting. You know what I mean?
One of the first things that I noticed about the Super Hornet is the fact that it actually comes with a jump drive, so it's able to go through the wormhole, if you will. So you'll send out the Super Hornets first. They'll go and check and scan and look around, and then the mothership will follow behind. So that's another thing that I was thinking about when you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Like the scout just doesn't have to be like actively scouting as you're actively moving. Which is a way you can do it. But if you wanted to take over or if you wanted to sit in a safe system and have the scouts jump ahead like hours, minutes, days in advance and then relay that information back, that's one way to keep the fleet like absolutely safer. Or say you don't have the people online to crew that massive monster and all your fleet assets, then you could plot a whole system jump, days in advance. That way you could cover massive ground to the next safe spot in one big leap.
Yeah, it's basically, intelligence drives operations. You want to have your forward scouts that do the route planning and everything ahead of time. I suppose in a more tactical situation, I can see, I don't know, like I would hope that your command ships or your big sensor ships, E-War ships, whatever, that are a part of the main fleet would have early warning. Basically, the types of sensors that can't tell you what ship it is. They don't have the resolution to differentiate between 10 small ships flying in a close formation versus big ship. But at a very long range, they pick up that they can pick up that early those early pings, and then that way you actually have a reason to scramble interceptors out to go investigate closer. If if the sensor model is so simple that you get in one range and every ship can see every other ship, it's going to dumb down the game to where, like, why would anybody want to sit behind a sensor control panel on a capital ship and do that role? The role is going to have to be, I guess, complicated enough to be interesting and take real skill in the same way that piloting a ship takes real skill. I don't know. It's kind of where I was thinking with it.
Yeah, because every job that they've described so far is going to be super involved. I mean, if it was like PlanetSide where you're running around with a blowtorch putting out fires, then that's going to get old. But it's so
Right.
Component, subcomponent, all this stuff like that. That's going to be 100% focus. So I mean, it's not so far fetched to think that the navigational stuff is going to have like all these different onion layers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ooh, question, Ian.
Uh-huh.
You're the man with all the knowledge. What about a point defense system that actually takes out infantry, aka anti-EVA?
That would be interesting. Well, you got to consider, like, when they were talking about the Tavaran, their boarding ship is supposed to be an EVA boarding ship. Yeah, the Prowler's supposed to be like some kind of stealth ship that gets in close, and then, or even the modules that they were kicking around concept-wise for the Caterpillar, basically a way to launch EVA personnel who mag boot onto the side of the ship and then might start blowtorching the airlocks or whatever. I don't know how that gameplay will work, but that would be damn cool, and it would give you a good reason to have external cameras and external anti-personnel PDS systems. It's a good idea.
I was just sitting there. I mean, every time I ever think about the point defense systems, I always go back to the Death Star and like these giant turrets just turning and like trying to shoot the X-wings out of the would-be supposed sky. The bad expression, I know, but the point is that what's going to actually zap the people that are actually trying to get. I mean, clearly, what is it? The Constellation has a solution for that. You can just get on the Merlin and just zap the hell out of them, but you can't do that with any other ship.
You have to fire your own ship.
Yeah, but still, if pew pew, as opposed to boom.
I don't know. If a ship is still under its own power, I'm hoping that the force of normal combat maneuvers in a ship would break off anybody who's mag booted on just because of external G-forces. And that would be a good gameplay limiter because, if you sneak up on the Connie's just sitting there, you're fine. But if you don't complete your operation and get inside and they realize someone's on the outside, they just hit full thrust and you just get tumbled off into space. Maybe.
Or you can just kind of slowly drive up to the corona of a star, turn on the shields to one side and have a free cook. Pirate kebab. All right. Well, okay, so bomber defense.
I don't know. Are we talking point turret defense? Or are we talking like scrambling dedicated interceptors? I don't know. What do you think, Joey? What's going to be your preferred method or combination thereof?
Well, I think for like larger, like ship-to-ship bombs and stuff like that, there should be a mechanic that you could shoot the missile. Like your own peacekeeper kind of thing. Is that going to be a thing?
Yeah. I think so. I hope so. I'm hoping that the torpedoes will travel slow enough and be large enough that they don't act like just bigger, more potent missiles.
Yeah, because there's. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, it would have to be a combination of both point defense for the bombers themselves as well as their torpedoes once they get in range. But then at the same time, you would have to have interceptors to take out the bombers way ahead of time. So point defense would be like your last line of defense.
Yeah, like or BVR torpedoes. Like I don't see why. I mean, honestly, the Retaliator ought to be able to launch beyond visual range, torps. I mean, of course, they should show up on the radar and they should be traveling slow. Maybe even be pilot driven. but whatever that that'd be interesting.
Strapped like a little bitty cherubim.
Aloha snack bar.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but I think that would definitely have to be like a a mechanic. I mean,
Right.
because it's not like an Idris is going to suddenly, go into a full flip and outrun a torpedo or anything like that. It's just going to lay there.
What about the
Well, once-
squishies?
Oh, the like scrambling interceptors. I like that
Basically.
idea. I think having I think with an Idris, and again this is kind of goes into the next topic, so I don't want to get into it too much, but I think the ships that you have on your Idris would probably be best served as anti-incoming bomber, whereas your turrets would be your point of defense against incoming fighters.
Hmm.
Yeah, because they're supposed to have auto turrets and stuff like that too. Maybe you could train the auto turrets just to fire at anything that moves that isn't well. That's going to be something else too. How are you going to know what's friendly and what's not friendly out there if everybody's just sort of the same? I mean, you're going to have a criminal level or whatever, but I don't know. That's a whole different topic though. Auto turrets, they blow my mind.
Right.
Like how does an auto turret know that this guy is looking at me funny and I want him to watch it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Is it going to attack him when they attack me or?
I'm hoping that there will be a chance of failure.
Well, like command and control, I'm sure you'll be able to assign hostility and authorize. I mean, actually, that's actually an interesting thing because like right now in no longer even in the PTU in Crusader, if somebody shoots you, you are now authorized to respond and kill them without gaining a criminal level, right? You guys are aware of that mechanic, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? Like I was in a situation where I was in my ship, about to get out of the ship and go into Kovalex shipping station, right? And there's like 4 other ships all parked, all empty. This other douchebag flies in and starts trying to shoot at the parked ships. Well,
I never did.
I respond to the threat and kill him. But guess, and I got a criminal rating because he hadn't hit me before I hit him. So what would have the way that they're going to need to resolve that, or one of the ways I would think would be like if anybody shoots within a 360 degree bubble of your ship, you get a prompt that pops up that says authorize hostile action. In other words, basically designating that you take that near miss as hostility towards you. You can respond without being deemed a criminal, and and that way you can work as a guard against a group, because I mean, you don't want to put yourself in the line of fire just so that you can, now be authorized to respond.
Yeah, and see, I had kind of the same thing happen. I went and I was goofing off in a freelancer, and one of my workmates was sitting there in a Saber, and I started to lift off, and as a joke, he was going to nose in close, and he hit V, and he went into Super Cruise and slammed right into me, and it registered it as my offense. Like, suddenly I had a criminal level.
Well, I mean, you are kind of offensive. I mean, so.
Man, your smell is criminal level. Anyway, all right, we're gonna go ahead and move on. I think we had some of that one. So as far as large capital ships are concerned, what kind of roles do you guys wish to see? Imagine fighters, bombers, subcorvettes, classes, capitals, and all the above, going out at it all at once in one giant fight. I kind of have an opinion on this, but I want to hear you guys first.
Joe, you want to open with this?
So we're talking about like who does what on the battlefield type of thing?
Basically, this question was about what are the roles? Like, are fighters going to be able to threaten capitals, or will bombers be able to single-handedly threaten out? Like, will they have to work together? And like, how will they work together? Like, what's the balance going to be? Or
Well, I guess it depends on the ship type. I mean, obviously, one Gladius isn't going to be able to take down an Idris by itself. But
right.
Well, I mean,
but how effective? How effective? Yeah. How many should be able to? How many retaliators should be able to? And think of it this way: going back to what we were talking about earlier about how difficult it's going to be to run an Idris. Like if you've got to take 20 people and then another 20 NPCs to crew this Idris, the amount of players that are involved. If you make the Idris so easy that 6 players across 6 retaliators with a bunch of NPC crew manning their turrets can take out your Idris that has 20 people and 20 NPCs and all this other. Basically, you would never get in the giant steel coffin. It's
exactly
the number of players working together in unison because of the additional difficulty needs to be a force multiplier of how strong and how effective that can possibly be. Not saying that and that should be mediated with difficulty, I think.
Yeah, and see, I know it's kind of want one hand and poop in the other one and see which one fills up faster, but I want an Idris that can be beaten on for a while. You know what I mean? I want it to be like broken and floating and venting into space and hurt and still be able to be recovered. Not just sort of like, I guess I was hoping for it in the Constellation, but once you get in a fight in a Constellation, you either win or you're done. There's hardly any limping away from that, because once you get to the point of no return, you're basically just toast, because that thing falls to pieces. And I don't know, balancing issues or the way shields are working and the new component system coming in or whatnot. But, like I want like huge pieces sheared off, even if it takes 3 or 4 Gladius just to beat on a Constellation, to get it to that point. I'm totally okay with that. Even if I'm not the person in the big ship, I don't feel like it would feel very rewarding to fly up on an Idris and pop it in 3 seconds.
Well, citing great reference material here, if the old cheesy movie Independence Day has anything to say about it, one airplane can take out an entire mothership.
by a drunk pilot, a crop duster.
I've taken out entire command ships with my crop dusting. Boodio, she agrees.
I was going to say, she's there with you. She's that poor woman. All crew,
I don't know.
Evacuate C deck. Evacuate C deck immediately.
I think I was talking to some other gentlemen about capital class combat, and the way I see it is I see the turrets on an Idris, for them to be useful, they're not made as anti-capital turrets, right? So why the hell would a fighter that has superior maneuverability and speed want to get in close to an Idris? So you have to make the fighters a threat to an Idris, but at the same time, you can't have single-seat fighters able to do damage. I mean, that's ridiculous. The idea of a single-seat fighter being able to, do any damage to an Idris is kind of ridiculous. I can see if shields are down, they might be able to damage external components or external turrets. Got it. But single-seat fighters, if it's hard ammo, it should be shrugged off. If it's laser fire, the armor's just too damn thick. But the only thing that makes logical sense to me is if those fighters' laser weaponry can potentially just be used to focus fire and take down shield facings. And so you have a multi-stage attack. So the fighters have to roll in and take down the shield facing on an Idris, which takes time. And then that opens up the opportunity for the bombers. That's when you have to time your bombing runs. You have to coordinate because and that implies that torpedoes are going to do very little to shields, but they'll do a lot of damage to like hull armor and things like that. But they have to get through the shields. So it comes down to balancing torps to be heavy and slow, and that you got to time it, and you got to get past any turret defenses or things that might shoot it down, and so on and so forth. Which then, because the bombers are now your threat, and they're part of a 2-stage attack to get through to even crack part of the Idris's internal egg, that's why your Idris is going to have anti-bomber fighters on board that they'll launch when those bombers are on the radar. That's kind of how I see it. And because otherwise,
add to it though.
Go ahead.
To add to it though, what I've always noticed is I look at the weapons that people I don't think people are going to use these weapons a lot. That's what I look at. So I try to find an application. Well, I'm just giving an example. I'll give you one in specific, the sucker punch. I don't think that people are going to like to use it, and I see there's some interesting gameplay aspects about that particular gun already. The thing that I'm looking at is the sucker punch probably it's probably going to maintain that ability to eat through a shield really, really, really well. But it's also got a really, really small amount of range. So that means you have to get in close, but you're going to do a lot more damage to his shield. So in that case, for certain fighters, the risk might be worth the reward. And you got to understand, it's a blended weapon system. So you're going to have on a Super Hornet, you'd have 2 sucker punches and 4 of whatever else.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's the thing, is you have to give fighters a reason to get close to the Idris. Otherwise they're just not going to. And if you balance the game in such a way that fighters have no reason to engage this giant capital ship with a bunch of turrets at close range, they're not going to, which means that the Idris has all these turrets for nothing. So it obviously to make use of the things that are put into the game, the mechanics will have to reflect that.
But then a lot of the balance could also be with, you're small and you can't really hurt me, but you're fast and I can't really hit you. You know what I mean? So I just imagine in my head, like the whole Admiral Akbar, like, X ships go in with the sucker punches and knock out the shields, and then it's like, oh, fighters concentrate power. Well, you know what I mean?
Think about the size of the given turrets. What's already been stated is that the smaller the gimbal, the quicker the response time. So think about the turrets for just a second. If you have a larger turret, it's going to be a slower to turn, slower to react turret. If you have a size 1 turret, just a standard issue, it's going to be really peppy and it's going to be really, really on the mark. So you can expect to see a mix of different turret styles as well.
Maybe. I mean, if you're suggesting that the biggest gun that you can mount on the Idris turrets will actually have an effect on another capital ship.
Well,
but I just, unless those are like size 6 or something, I just, it seems to me like the fighter class of weaponry should barely even scratch, a capital ship. It should threaten its external components and turrets and sensor equipment, perhaps, if the shields are already down. And that's where hard ammo might be of use to a small ship. They might choose to sit outside of turret fire and try to knock off the turrets before their laser fighters engage. And that might force the Idris captain to launch his bomber interceptors early to try to take out those hard ammo ships, which means that, if the other fighters then ambush those hard ammo or those defenders, then that again opens up the bomber attack run. So, that turns it into a strategy game. I mean, at least that's the best I can see of it. I mean, there could be a completely different, I don't know,
think about
angle they go for.
Think about turrets like this too, though. You can also have, like, say you have a larger, like a size 3 turret that's going to be really slow to turn, slow to move. Well, sure. I'm going to reference another video game, Sins of a Solar Empire. There, on the Terran side, there is a flak gun. There's basically a ship that's just nothing but a giant shotgun. And its whole goal is just to spread bullets all over the place and take out the drones and the other fighters and whatnot. So you can look at that and see in reference that that's just another idea that they can use, is they can basically mount a turret-style shotgun onto a ship like that and actually take out droves, potentially, if the guy's good at using it and can time his shots right. He might be able to take out like 2 or 3 really, really light fighters at a time. The thing with that though is I know what you're talking about. Like when I played Homeworld 2 and so on, those games you had a lot of very specific role ships. You had your fighters, you had your interceptors, you had your corvettes, your frigates, and then it'd go up to destroyers and so on and so forth. And the thing is you would have these anti-fighter frigates, and you'd have these anti-fighter destroyers, you'd have these anti-capital ship, and it was all about balancing your fleet. But the thing is in Star Citizen, you're going to actually have a crew of somewhere between 1 or 2 people in one ship to 5 or 6 on a freighter to 10 or 20 on a capital ship. If you dedicate an entire capital ship to a single role, unless the game client, or the servers can support massive battles, which we're still kind of, that's in the very, very distant future, if ever. But basically, you're not going to have like a capital ship where it's just all completely anti-fighter, because I think you just run into situations where it would be too lopsided.
I mean, maybe you could outfit it that way. I don't know.
La-da-da-dee. Fun thoughts there.
I don't know. We ready to move on? I know we've talked a lot about a lot of different things, but there's always more. There's I definitely had some interesting questions for Joey if he he's done the convoy thing and done the real
who
world
cares about the
military.
guest opinion? Just go ahead and give him buzzing with some questions. No, I'm playing.
Like I don't know. Hey Joey, so what do you think? Like compared to like real world operations, do you think tactical movement with a group of ships is going to be more like infantry formations where you spread out, you're doing wedges and you're doing things like that, or you think it's going to be more like vehicle movement where it's all convoy and then you just have a certain SOP when it comes to a standard operating procedure when it comes to responding to enemy contact?
I think it'd be more option B in that. I mean, it really depends on the group and how experienced they are, because it's easy to, get tunnel vision and narrow in on one target and ignore comms and, chase one guy around in circles. But I mean, with our group, we're really focusing on working together as a team and
Nice.
possibly putting together like specific maneuvers for, broad situations and stuff like that. I mean, because you can't plan for everything. You just have to hope that your people know each other well enough that when something goes wrong, they know how to interact with one another to resolve the situation. But as far as like the slow movers and the soft targets and stuff like that, it's going to have to be very convoy based. You're weak and you need to sit on my blind spot with your one gun and cover that, and I'll cover, everybody else, that sort of thing, like tuck the Starfarer up under the Idris and, under it, where one turret doesn't cover it, and just have her little side guns as pew pew, and because you're not going to dogfight with a fueler, or
Right.
the same with the Crucible and stuff like that. It's going to be very much it's smarter to say circle the wagons with the fleet body, and then let the fighters do the fighting and stuff. It all just depends on your people too, really, and how they react on like. Well, I'm not going to say
the
in
coolest
combat.
idea. That's like the coolest idea. I want to actually go and try to dogfight with Starfarers.
And
Well,
see,
hey,
that was
you know,
a conversation we actually had. Well, I need like 5 or 6 people in my Starfarer because it's got turrets and stuff like that. Well, I was like, no, because you're not going to be in a orbital barrel roll against a Gladius or something like that, slugging it out with them. You're going to be sitting right here taking pot shots from a distance.
That actually is perfect, because I was going to wrap up that topic with the final question of like what plans you have for guarding your soft targets, fuelers, cargo ships, miners, science vessels, etc.
Well, that would probably mostly be it. Tuck everything in closer to the Idris, where the Idris can protect it, and it can, likewise sort of protect the Idris. And because right now we're crewing a small fleet, but it takes so many people. That's why stuff on this scale, even like as small scale as what we're doing. Oh man, it's going to be horrible to have that many NPCs.
Four NPC per person. Let's just make that an unassumed number.
Even that, like, if you're projecting numbers like you need 50 people, that's still. Well, you can't have 10 real life people and then everybody have 4 NPCs or whatnot. So.
Well, that's where you have NPC fighter escorts. Those are like the cannon fodder. That ride along with their would-be host, and that guy rides beside you.
And that really depends on how good the NPCs are, just like how good the auto turrets are. Is it worth the tech upgrade to have to put it on there, the extra money for it to not be a person who's gonna suck, and have a computer do it for you at like half the accuracy. It just depends on if the NPC is standing there in the hallway pushing a mop and then he turns around to lick the window, he's not really all that useful. It just depends on how smart they're going to make the AI and like how useful they're going to be, because they've already said that it's not going to be as good as the average player, but I know a lot of people that suck.
Well, there's think about Vandal Swarm for a reference.
Why would you say those nice things about my mother?
Ow.
Mother holds
Double
her
ow.
own in Battle Royale. All right, I'm just going to say.
Anyway,
Never seen,
what I'm
I've never
referencing
seen a
is
woman fly a saber like that classy lady.
there is the first way to increase difficulty, and this is the old Street Fighter method. What they used to do is just do more special moves over and over and over and over again until they beat you. If you put on hard mode, that's what you got in Street Fighter. That's so you can make the AI more. Yeah, you can sit with me. You can actually have all kinds of guns and missiles and weapons firing out of these Vandal. Or you can also actually have them have a higher skill set, have a higher base. So which one would you rather have? Would you rather have something that's going to shoot a lot more at you, or or do you want to have something that's actually going to act more like a pilot, like a player would? That's the
Like
end
a
of the day
player.
question.
I mean, the whole
Yeah.
thing is they promised us, NPCs that were going to be relatively indistinguishable from another player. So hopefully the piloting will be frightening.
Yeah, I can get
Because
into Swarm.
right now the AI is embarrassing.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I can get into Swarm, and it fly. They fly straight whenever they should be like trying their damnedest to get out of the way of the line of fire. They're just sitting there flying straight. So just bam, bam,
Well,
bam, bam. Yeah.
and that's okay for like certain areas of space. I mean, you want players to have a range of difficulty to go up against, but when their players actually go up against like straight up Vandal, I think they need to walk in and be like, wow, that was tough. Like, you know what I mean? Like one-on-one with you know what I mean? Like, 'cause you can have a one-on-one fight with another pilot, and you might even know that you're better than them. You can tell from the way they fly, and you still it still takes 5 minutes to kill them just because,
Well,
the
I
nature
tell
of
you
the
what.
weapons you might be loaded or the ship they're flying or whatever.
I'll tell you what, Ion. You trade me computers, and then I'll go ahead and I'll show you whether or not I'm good or bad.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
I was just saying I shoot between frames.
Yeah, that's always tough, man. Like, I swore I would not go that route again. Like, I had to suffer that when I used to play EverQuest 1 way back in the day. And this time around, I actually had the expendable income, so I made sure I was set up well. And it's nice. It's nice.
But yeah, there is also
But-
that one. There is that one other part. That's the other unmentionable thing. There's just going to be some people that all they have is their Aurora, and they can't really afford to upgrade their computer, and so those people are going to look like they stink, but in reality, their tech actually limits their ability to be proficient.
Sure. I mean, hopefully hopefully there'll be a lot more gameplay than just the Twitch and the sim portions of the combat piloting. Even though that's a big part of it. I mean, Star Citizen is designed around taking advantage of high-end computers. So, I mean, it doesn't have an expensive buy-in, but if you want to be competitive, then you kind of gotta go the distance.
But also with that, if you think about Mr. Bengal engineer down there in his little room, he's not loading everything on the battlefield. I mean, the server's communicating it, but he might be down there flipping switches and changing fuses and not even know there was a fight. This is just me doing my job. And here, even on low settings with, a hand crank internet connection, he'd still, he can still do his little thing and play while everything else is going on, because the way they're trying to optimize it.
If I had a 56K modem sound clip right now, I would have played it. That would have been great. Hand
God
crank
bless,
internet.
don't do
Love
that.
it.
Just don't do that. Please don't do that.
Flashbacks.
All right, Joey. So I got a nice open-ended question for you. So I hope you're ready and on your toes.
All right, here I am.
All right. So your outfit, Virtus Eterno, it's looking to run the industrial ops angle in the early game, get out of dodge and all that. What kind of considerations do you think are going to be clutch for that kind of gameplay experience?
Everything. We have discussed everything, but the biggest thing is probably fuel constraints. Like, how far can each ship go? How much can the Starfarer refine? If we separate into task force, how many task force can one Starfarer support before we need to add a second?
Oh yeah,
Stuff like that. So
No,
mainly
that's
it's
a
all
great
about
answer.
fuel.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is it's theory craft. So I mean, there is no wrong answer, but I mean, I kind of agree. I think the logistics that go behind. I'm hoping. I mean, I know that they want this game to be fun, and that a lot of the community is so in bed with the the console idea of just respawn and kill and respawn and kill. But I just I mean I want the distance to be meaningful. I want getting to that far flung gas giant isn't just about pointing your nose and clicking a button and then a couple minutes later you're there. I mean, I want it to be like require navigation and logistics and fuel planning and refueling your fighters that you can't necessarily keep docked the whole route. Yeah, I think it'll be good. I don't know. What about you, Adrian?
They're working on they're working on gas cloud tech right now. They said in January. So I mean I see it coming soon enough. We might have some actual metrics to it soon. So that'd be cool.
Pretty cool. How about you, Vin? What do you think of the how intense logistics should be?
In some way, I think that it should be like the PvP slider bar. There should be like a realism bar. Do you actually want to manage every single thing, or do you want to actually kind of taper it down and let the AI or the auto NPC or whatever you have working for you do some of it? It should be up to the player, really. It shouldn't really even be a question. I for myself, I would like to actually have it automated because I don't want to have to worry about logistics. I don't want to have to worry about moving the ships around or getting the food or getting the bullets or getting this or that and the other. I really just want to be able to log on and have everything ready and fly.
I think maybe that'll be the difference between like single seat ships versus freelancer to constellation class ships up to basically the bigger you go ship wise, the more the game experience changes, and also that you might want to do single seater stuff, but then when you want to do single seater stuff as a part of a bigger fleet, then you also have to take into account that you're going to have to be docking with that Starfare and refueling and doing some of those things or landing repairs on the Idris, so you have to add those skill sets to your repertoire. But and then if you want to be the captain on a goddamn Idris, you're going to have to you're going to be like a commanding officer or a senior NCO in the real world. Like you're going to have to be a project manager. You're going to have to understand all of the assets you have. You have to understand their advantages and disadvantages and be able to make those leadership calls. It's not for everybody, but it would be an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be stressful and terrible, and it's going to give me gray hair, and I love thinking about it all the time.
There's the other thing that we didn't touch on any crew morale. Can you actually make your NPCs afraid of you and keep them subordinate? Can you go all like what is it? Not Malkavian? Is that what it is?
Malkavian.
That's it.
I remember something along those lines.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
I can't remember. Can't put my finger on it, but I think this was a conversation we had on the show a few weeks ago.
I've been pouring all this Star Citizen information in my head the last couple of weeks over podcasts and things like that, and I've come across somebody saying your own NPCs, they're gonna love you regardless, but they're not gonna turn around and shoot you in the back of the head, but
they're not.
NPC that you hire from Doc, that might be a chance, but your own secondary tune isn't just gonna turn around and go, look at me, I am the captain now. That's not going to happen.
See, that is completely possible, actually. And what it is like, hey, buddy, I need some help. Okay, let me log into your account as your NPC. Okay, thanks for being here. Hey, look, you got some really cool stuff. Yeah, you like it? Ain't it neat? Kapow.
I just imagine that whole scenario with a Ken and a Barbie doll, like birds and the
Ain't
bees talk. Yeah, it was awesome.
They're playing
house.
They're playing a little spaceship on the prairie.
There's a prairie? Wait, there isn't a...
Can I show you my Merlin?
There's a frontier.
Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time...
Okay.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait a minute. Okay, you've spent way too much time... Wait Oh dear Lord, you spent way too much time waxing that Merlin.
I will say this. A long time ago, they talked about NPCs that you picked up outside of UEE space wouldn't be, I guess, they wouldn't necessarily be restricted on some of their loyalty.
Shooting you in the face-ness.
Whereas if you get like an NPC in UEE space or whatever, they're going to be bonded, I guess, against betrayal. But I don't know. I've never heard anything else more about that. So, I know that they've been talking about working on AI a lot. So I really hope that they're not messing around. I have a lot of high hopes for those three dudes that started out in Kythera, and I don't know if they're even part of the team. I don't think I've heard their names mentioned in forever. I don't know if that just got rolled over to Germany, or if that got rolled over to who knows. But a great game can be ruined by a crappy AI, and for this game to be great, it's going to need good AI. So,
well, speaking of AI, it's about time that we disengage the ion. Well, guys, we're getting close to the end of the show, so when you're ready, we'll go ahead and kick off the final 5 questions. Are you ready, Joe?
I'm as ready as I can be.
All right, question 1, keyboard and mouse or HOTAS?
Filthy keyboard and mouse player.
dirty.
No, it's better than console users. Favorite flyable ship?
At the moment, the Saber.
Console peasants. Favorite future ship?
The Idris or the Carrack. It's like a tie.
And really, I don't mind consoles, people. Ballistic or energy weapons, maybe something else.
I love energy weapons because I love just pouring out an obscene amount of energy rounds downrange.
DACA.
Yeah, all the DACA.
So one more joke in between questions. Dyslexic gamers untie. Wait a minute, unite. Sorry. Craziest shenanigans you want to pull off after the game launch?
Operation GTFO, where we take a fleet of amazing ships in a random direction to inevitably die in a fire.
All right. Well, that was some really, really wonderful answers. Very, very skilled. Very, very epic. Very, very Warcraft. Wait a minute. Wrong thing. No, really, seriously, thank you for coming on to the show tonight. I want to, and we really do appreciate you hopping in here and, being somebody that we can pick on for the next hour or so. So anytime you'd like to do it again, just come on back, please.
Hey, don't threaten me with a good time.
Oh,
Threaten you.
oh yeah. All right, man. Well, to all of our listeners, new and old alike, thanks for spending your hard-earned time with us. Yeehaw! If you liked your show, be sure to like and subscribe. Feedback is even more important than that. Give it to us because we're working to improve every single episode. So hopefully you can tell if you've been following us for a long time, and if you're new, out of hell with it. Hopefully we rocked your socks off.
And don't forget that the show is brought to you in part by Big Ben's Pizza. And if you liked our intro and outro music today, check out the show notes and the YouTube links. Great stuff. And Ion?
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week. Godric, if you're ready, table flip us that outro beat.
All right, here we go.
Oh, sorry.
I'm already dancing.
Never gonna give you up.
Never gonna let you down.
Never gonna turn around. You.
Whoa. Damn. Situational awareness is important.
We're totally doing it. It's an outro music. I love it. Every single time. We just can't. We can't hold out. We can't hold out.
What a smooth ass honky.
Woes.
Wozer?
Yeah, I didn't even swear one time. Aren't you proud of me?
Fuck no.